Welcome to today's workshop on interview preparations. I'm Siding, Executive Manager of Partnership and Industry Engagement in EIA, GBCA, and University of Canberra in Melbourne. I know this season you have finished or almost finished your exams of this semester in university. And if this is your last semester, you might be busy at looking for a job. And if you are in the middle of your degree studies, and it is a good time to secure an internship opportunity. So if you are one of them, this workshop will be right. It is right for you to learn how to get ready for your next interview. And so before the start of this workshop, I would like to introduce everyone the Career Center in EIA, GBCA, and University of Canberra in Melbourne. Our Career Center provides one-to-one customized career advice and support. This including CV additions, interview trainings, help to plan your career future, and offering internship and job opportunities. We have 5+ experienced career educator and has established a long-term relationship with more than 30 industry mentors to provide everyone one-to-one mentorship. So if you need any support or helps as an EIA and GBCA or UC-GBCA students, please feel free to contact us at careercenter@gbca.edu.au. All the above services are free for you. So I just put the contact of a career center here in the chat board. You can find that in the chat board. So now let's back to today's workshop. I would like to introduce today's presenter, Mr. Rhys Williams, our Director of Partnership and Industry Engagement. Mr. Williams is the immediate former Director of Transnational Education at VU. He has extensive experience in designing, establishing, and managing transnational educational partnerships in Australian universities. At RIT, Mr. Williams managed international partnerships in the business portfolio in China and Singapore. Rhys has tremendous experience in university partnership and industry engagement. So today he will share his idea and experience with everyone on what kind of key selection criteria for different kind of jobs and what kind of students companies are looking for. So now I will pass the rest part of our workshop to Rhys. Thank you, Rhys.
Thanks, Siding. Look, it's a great pleasure to speak with you today. So that we can make this as interactive as possible, it'd be great if you could all turn on your cameras, but put yourself on mute because we've got a lot of background noise. Can you turn on your cameras? Fantastic. Turn on your camera, but keep yourself on mute until you ask a question because there's a bit of background noise. But look, it's a great pleasure to be able to chat to you today. Siding has given a little bit of my background, but one important thing in my background is that for the last 25 years, I've been employing people and I've been on selection panels and particularly international students. Both at Victoria University and RMIT University, we operated students as staff programs where we interviewed students in a very international format to take on jobs at the university. And that's where we've got some of the ideas of this session for you. So rather than me just speaking to you, about interview skills and key selection criteria. This is a two-part workshop. Today, I'll talk a little bit about key selection criteria and interviews. And then on Friday between 1 and 2, I think that's correct. If you want to, pick up the takeaways that you've got from today's session and we can do a mock interview on Friday. we'll record that mock interview, and you'll have the opportunity to access that recording and see yourself as others see you. See yourself as others see you, and therefore get a better understanding of how you're performing in an interview. Okay? Okay, all right. So that'll be the format. And I'm going to show some PowerPoint slides, but please, let's make this as interactive as possible. There'll be plenty of time for Q&A at the end, but if you have a burning question as we go, please raise it. So I'm just going to share my screen for you now. Okay, can you all see that?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, just bear with me. Right, can you see that? No? Okay.
Yeah, for anyone who just joined the workshop, we would like to invite you to turn on your camera for a more interactive workshop. Thank you. Let us to see your lovely face. Thanks.
Okay.
Yes,
can you
we can
see that? Ah, brilliant. Okay. Okay. So part of this, or a key part of this activity is understanding key selection criteria. Key selection criteria are the critical component of a selection process in an international environment, and often international students aren't aware of it. Lots of domestic people aren't aware of it. So many international students, or many people, full stop, will apply for a job. They think that they're very, very well qualified for that job, but they hear nothing, because today often, unfortunately, you hear back, and their application has gone straight into the rubbish bin because it doesn't provide the information requested from you on your suitability for the position. Pretty much every professional position has key selection criteria. These are key means important, selection means to be able to be successful for the job, and criteria, it's a hurdle or it's a characteristic. So key selection criteria describe a position's selection requirements and standards. What are the exact requirements and at what level those requirements are for a job? And don't worry, we'll have a look at plenty of examples as we go through. Key selection criteria enable the selection team to compare candidates objectively. If I interview 5 people for a position, I need to be able to make an objective decision. So against each of those criteria, the requirements and the standards, I make some notes. Sometimes people score 5 out of 10, 8 out of 10, etc. So that against the key selection criteria, the selection team can objectively see which person is the best person for the job, or most suited for the position. And also importantly, certainly in an Australian environment, it facilitates transparency and evidence, including for legal reasons. Many people complain to Fair Work Australia, and it doesn't cost you any money to do it, and say, look, I was very, very well qualified for a position and I didn't get the position. I want to know why. And Fair Work Australia will go to the HR department of the company and they will ask for the evidence. And it's important that all companies have kept that evidence of scoring people against the key selection criteria. So the takeaway message, the big takeaway message is key selection criteria must be addressed in your written application, and they will form the basis of the interview questions where you make your pitch in the selection interview. So if you're applying for a professional job, sure, you can send your CV and a covering letter, but you need to have a little written statement showing your evidence against each of the selection criteria. So here's a position in the business area for a business development support officer. This is the sort of position that an entry-level graduate would be applying for. And I've taken this with very, very little change off the internet. And these are the examples of pretty standard key selection criteria. So minimum of a degree level qualification in business or a related discipline. And then the statement, if you've got a postgrad qualification, it'll be highly regarded. It's not absolutely essential, but it'd be highly regarded. Now, under essential experience and knowledge, you need to be able to demonstrate that you've got experience in a business support, admin, or development role, preferably involving the Asian region. Experience in implementing and coordinating business activities, sound knowledge of business development requirements, including costing, contracting, and due diligence. Okay, so the team that's doing the selection for this particular role is firstly to see if you get an interview. They're going to want to see the written statement that you've got and examples of experience that you've got in business support, etc., coordinating business activities, and sound knowledge of business development requirements. Moving on, essential skills and competencies. They want to see some proven ability to operate, to work in a cross-functional team environment, providing strong inputs into decision-making. Strong analytical skills, excellent written and verbal communication skills, including strong presentation skills. And if you're bilingual, it'll be highly regarded. Strong personal initiative with proven ability to execute with little supervision in a fast-paced environment. And then finally, you must be eligible to work in Australia. Don't apply for the position if you're on a visa, which doesn't enable you to work. And also there'll be some interstate and overseas travel involved. So don't apply if you don't want to do travel. Okay, over to you. Do we have any questions so far? Any questions? Take yourself off mute if you've got a question. Does everybody understand all the wording in those key selection criteria? Some of those words you mightn't have come across before. Okay, all right, well, I'll keep going. All right, now, it's important for you as background, some background is important to look at key selection criteria in their workplace context. Now, I've got two boxes there. One international or more Western context, and one more Eastern, if you like, or more Asian context. And I think you'll see that key selection criteria grow very much out of that international context. International contexts got a flatter management structure. Eastern contexts, more hierarchical management. Hierarchical means you've got stricter hierarchies. You've got the boss, the supervisor, the worker. In an international context, it's a bit flatter. You might have the supervisor and then workers. Team leaders, workers, all together in a much flatter structure. International environments, and this confuses the dickens out of international students often have much more self-directed rather than directive work. In an Eastern context, the boss will say, these are the 5 things I want you to do. I want you to do this between 9 and 10, this between 2 and 3. In an international context, often your supervisor will say, hi, welcome to the company. It's great to have you as the business support officer. There's your desk. Good luck. Go for it. And you go, oh my God, what am I supposed to do? I don't know what to do. And you sit there very, very shyly and try to look busy. And then you go to a co-worker and say, hey, what am I supposed to be doing? And it's over time that you learn to be more self-directed. This is often an interesting one. The requirements and duties often are unclear and require negotiation, but often they're written down and they don't mean anything. The opposite in an Eastern context. The requirements and duties are often very clear, but they're not necessarily written down. More informal in an international context, much more formal in an Eastern context. And this causes lots of problem for international students. Also, less deference to authority. What does deference mean? Can someone define deference for me? I think everybody's shy. Okay. Deference to authority means showing behaviour which is very, very respectful to authority. So that when the boss walks into the room, everybody stands up. You refer to people as sir or madam rather than by their first name. In international contexts, often very informal, you just refer to the boss by their first name. If you have to go home early, doesn't matter, you just pack up and go. You don't have to wait for the boss to go home. So there's less deference to authority. There's more two-way communication rather than one-way communication. A more objective approach to recruitment. For recruitment, that's where key selection criteria come in, a lot more objective approach rather than in an Eastern context, a more networked approach where often there's not a formal selection process where people are recommended for a job because they're a friend, or I owe someone a favour, so I employ someone that they've recommended. In an international context, it's always a lot more objective. And then again, the Fair Work Australia context, transparency, fairness and evidence are key things that Fair Work will want to see. Okay, I'm going to stop again. Any questions about that? We have any questions? No, okay.
So Rhys, this key selection criteria is for complete in Western company or complete Eastern company. So how about a Western company in Eastern country?
Good, good. Well, that's why I've tried to say sitting an international context rather than a Western one. So a Western company operating in China or in Vietnam in an Eastern realm often will have key selection criteria, a more objective, a more, if you like, Western approach, more objective approach to selection. Often, for example, Chinese state-owned enterprises that operate across the world in a number of different countries, they will adopt the more objective, more key selection criteria based approach, certainly when they're operating in foreign countries. Does that help?
Yep, thanks, Rhys.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so it's important to, I think, for you all, as you emerge from your courses and start moving into the workforce, to be aware of the context. So let's have a little bit of a look at the approach. The interview itself, the interview that you do, it's an opportunity for what we call an authentic pitch against the key selection criteria. The interviewers aren't there to test you or to trap you. Generally speaking, interviewers really want to find out about your evidence that you've got against the key selection criteria. And if you don't say very much in the interview, if you answer just with yes and no questions, if you don't raise examples that you've put in your written interview, in your written application, then the selection team will think that this is a bit odd. What does the word authentic mean? Authentic means be true to yourself. Don't pretend that you're some sort of advertising salesman and you have to sell yourself in a very false way. Don't do that. Be very authentic. Now, a pitch is where you have to sell and where you need to, in often a very short period of time, in a very organized way, give some evidence about yourself against the key selection criteria. So the key thing is practice, particularly the generic key selection criteria, which we'll talk about later, and also about scenarios. You need to practice, and you'll have the opportunity to ask a few questions today, as well as to do a practice interview on Friday. So often international students, they think, oh my God, I'm young. The key selection criteria are very frightening. They're asking for all of this experience. I'm hopeless. I don't have any of that experience. Well, in fact, you do. Use examples from your work experience, internship, volunteer roles, project-based assessment that you've done as part of your course, teamwork and team-based assessment that you've done, some of your own research and development, some of your hobbies and interests. So that's at least 8 different parts of your life that you can find examples of your experience, examples of things that you've done that you can relate to the course, the key selection criteria. Don't spend a lot of time on your course results. International employers aren't really interested in your CV, and they're not really interested in your degree or your grades. They assume that you've got a degree, they assume that you've done well. The interview is not about your grades, it's about you. It's about you authentically talking about yourself, and without big noting yourself, it's about you giving good evidence of how you meet those key selection criteria. Another point that's good to do is focus on how you can add value to the organisation. Focus on how your skills and experience will bring positive value to the organisation. The next one you mightn't have come across before, and it's certainly a word that I'd ask you to look up in the dictionary, because many international students cause themselves problems. Don't be obsequious. It's a funny English word, and it means excessive eagerness to please someone or giving exaggerated compliments. I've been on the selection panel for interviews, and it's embarrassing when a person being interviewed says, "Oh, I really want to join your company because the research I've done shows it's by far and away the absolutely best company that exists in the world. Your courses are absolutely fantastic." Or great eagerness to please. "Oh, if I'm employed in this company, I'll work 18 hours a day. I'll clean the toilets. I'll change the light bulbs." So this idea is called obsequious, giving exaggerated compliments and giving excessive ways of trying to please the interviewers. That will give you a big cross. Just be authentic. Next one, be prepared for the opening interview question often is, why do you want this role? Or what attracted you to this role? Be ready for that one where in your mind, you've got a summary of why you've applied for the job or what's attracted you to the job. If you're asked the question, what attracted you to this role? And you look like a rabbit that's stuck in the headlights of a car and say, "Oh, well, what attracted me to the role? Well, I saw it advertised in the newspaper, or my friend told me about the job." The interviewers immediately see that you don't know much about the position and you don't have enthusiasm about the role. Okay, so be prepared for that question, and certainly on Friday you'll have the opportunity to practice some answers to that. And be prepared for scenarios, and we'll talk a little bit more about scenarios later. Be prepared, always have a couple of your own questions to ask. It's very important that you ask some questions at one of these interviews. Be enthusiastic and authentic, and remember that the role of the interviewer is to gain evidence that you meet the selection criteria. So give them plenty of evidence. Don't be reticent, or don't be worried about talking about yourself. This is what the interviewers want you to do. They want you to talk about yourself. They want you to talk about yourself with confidence. They want you to talk about relevant examples, relevant work, relevant experiences that you have against the key selection criteria. That's what they're looking for. Okay, so this will help you in your interview approach. Okay, questions, over to you. Any questions? Okay, right. Let's give you some examples of questions. If one of the key selection criteria is the position covers some business research, you might be asked, please describe the business research that you've undertaken. In your opinion, what are the characteristics of effective business research? Market analysis. Please describe market analysis tasks that you've undertaken. Again, what criteria do you, in your opinion, think are the most useful in market analysis to assist good decision making? And so on and so forth. Company profiling. What company profiling have you undertaken? what criteria are most useful in a Chinese company profile or Vietnamese company profile? What data sources do you use in company profile? Can these really be trusted? One of the key things that the questions are asking is your view, your opinion, your ideas. So be prepared and practice having some of your ideas, some of your perceptions that you can provide in answer to these questions. Okay, generic questions. All job interviews have generic key selection criteria, and therefore there'll be some generic questions. How effective are your workplace communication skills? Please give examples. Demonstrate ways in which you have shown initiative. Initiative means what? Initiative means get up and go. Initiative means there was a problem in my workplace, and rather than leaving it to the boss to find out the problem, I took some initiative to solve that problem. Are you a problem solver? Give us examples of some problems that you've solved. Have you shown leadership in your work and studies? In what ways are you a good leader? This is a difficult one, but it's often asked, and you need to be prepared for it. What are your strengths and weaknesses? What do you think are your strengths and weaknesses? Or if I talk to one of your lecturers or one of your previous employers or one of your people as referees, what things would they say about you that you're strong in or you're not so strong in? And how do you work on those weaknesses? We all find it a little bit difficult to talk about what our strengths are. We certainly find it a little bit difficult to talk about our weaknesses or areas that we're not good in. So you need to think and practice. Where do you want to be in 3 years' time? Okay, you're applying for a business support position. You've got a degree. This is one of the first roles that you're going to take on in a professional way. Well, where do you want to be in 3 years' time? Do you want to be the Prime Minister? Do you want to be retired? Do you want to be a millionaire? Do you want to have had 2 promotions? Where do you want to be in 3 years' time? The next one's very important for you. You are bilingual, you're bicultural, and you have a Western degree. What advantages does this give you? And how will this background benefit you in this particular role? Many international students think, oh, I'm not as good as a domestic student. My English is not as good. Culturally, I'm not as natural in the environment. However, you often have lots of particular advantages if you're bilingual and bicultural. So make sure that you use them. Scenarios. Often you get a scenario and people become very tongue-tied. You learn that a co-worker is talking to others behind their back, saying that you are difficult to work with. What would you do? If that happened in the workplace, that someone that you work with, you know, is saying nasty things about you, saying that you're difficult to work with, what would you do? Would you punch them? Would you say nasty things about them on social media? Would you not do anything about it? What would you do? What is the responsible, ethical way that shows leadership? How would you deal with it? You are working in a team undertaking a market analysis for the wine industry. You think that key sources of data are not being included. The team that you're working with, team that you're working with, just simply not picking up the data. You think that it's very, very important and you're being ignored. What would you do? How do you resolve this? You're working in a team. What's even worse, and I'm sure you've come across it in your studies, you're in a team of 3 or 4 to do an assessment piece. You're up till 10 o'clock at night doing a whole pile of work. You've got a couple of people in the team who are not pulling their weight. You want to kill them, but you can't kill them. How do you solve that problem? Every workplace that you work in, you're going to need to work in teams, and you're not going to get on with everybody in that team. Some people aren't going to pull their weight. So how do you solve that problem? Your boss has asked you to profile 2 companies by an email. He sent you an email. You're very unclear on the purpose of the profile. You're very unclear on what is required. What do? You just sit at your desk and go, oh my God, I don't know what to do. I'll just have a go at it and maybe get it wrong? Or will you show the leadership to go and knock on the boss's door rather than send an email back, knock on the boss's door and say, could I have 10 minutes with you? I'd love to do these company profiles, but I want to get them right. And I'm not quite clear on exactly what you want. Could you please give me some more information? So often you'll get scenarios like this in a job interview, and the interviewers aren't trying to trap you. They're not trying to trick you. They're trying to see whether you've got good leadership, whether you've got good ideas, and whether you've practiced what you would do in difficult situations in the workforce. Even if you've not had a great deal of workforce experience, you can still answer these questions because these sorts of situations will have come up for you in your group work during your degree, in some volunteer work that you've done, or maybe in some internship that you've done. Okay, so key selection criteria, absolutely critical. These are examples of key selection criteria. The first 3 related to specific things. Some of you will be doing an IB degree. Some of you will be doing a diploma of business. Some of you will be doing accounting, a Bachelor of Accounting. In those technical areas, you might be asked some questions related to business or accounting. But there are 3 specific examples of technical areas, technical key selection criteria. And then, of course, the generic ones. And the generic ones often are a lot more important. Okay, so finally, I'm going to give you there 2 brilliant references. The International Education Association of Australia has just published a lovely little document called Employable You, an online guide for international students. And the Foundation for Young Australians has published a great little guide called The New Work Smarts, Thriving in the New Work Order. And I'm going to refer you to those. Those are both really good, up-to-date resources for you for key selection criteria and particularly your interview skills. So I just want to show you one more thing. Where are we? Okay. Can you see that?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right. By 2030, what we do in every job will change. There will be a great reduction in the need for workers to complete routine manual tasks, and a great increase in the time workers spend focusing on people, solving strategic problems, and thinking creatively. This change in work means that young people need to be equipped with the new work smarts. And in this lovely diagram, there are three components: smart learning, smart thinking, and smart doing. In terms of smart learning, workers will spend 30% more time learning on the job. I talked to an engineering academic the other day, and he said, one of the great problems that we've got with engineering degrees is that 60% of what we teach students in their degree is out of date by the time they've graduated. Very similar for accounting, very similar for marketing, very similar for most professions. So you're going to spend a lot more time learning on the job, learning new ways of doing things, new technical things, particularly using information technology. So you're going to need the workforce that you enter into, you're going to be spending 30% more time having to learn on the job. Smart thinking, you're going to be spending almost 100% more time at work solving problems. It won't be just doing stuff, it will be actually solving problems. 41% more time on critical thinking and judgment. 77% more time using science and mathematics skills. 17% more time per week using verbal communication and interpersonal skills. Smart doing, workers will need to develop an entrepreneurial mindset due to 26% less management. The structures into the future are going to be a hell of a lot less hierarchical and flatter. 14% more time with less organisational coordination and 10% less teaching. So this is a great little diagram for you for the wider context. You're going to have to be smarter learning, smarter thinking, and smarter doing at work. In summary, lots of the simpler, more routine stuff is just going to go out the window, and you're going to be asked to do higher level thinking work. And that's what you're going to have to prepare yourself for. So hopefully that's, and I might say by way of conclusion, that I entered the workforce 40 years ago, and it was a much less pleasant place than it is today. When I joined the workforce, I had a very, very narrow and simple series of things to do. I was never asked to solve a problem. I was never asked to use my judgment. I was told what to do. Today, the workforce is a much more interesting and creative place. Today, I routinely have to solve problems. When I started work in education, we didn't have computers. We didn't have smartphones. Everything was done face to face. Today, we're doing this session, for goodness sake, on Zoom. People are all over the world. So today's workforce, by conclusion, is a much more interesting place to be. Okay, over to you. Some questions, please.
No.
Key selection criteria. Do you know everything about key selection criteria? About questions that come up, about interview skills?
Rhys,
What else would you like to know to practice for next Friday?
I have a very easy questions. What to do when I don't know the answer to a specific job interview questions?
Okay, if you don't know the answer, don't pretend that you do.
Just be honestly.
To be honest, that's an interesting question, but I don't know the answer. But what I can say is that I know how to learn, and I know how to learn on the job, and I'm a quick learner. So I can't answer that particular question, but if you give me a week and if you assist me, I could certainly come up with a good answer to that question.
But if it's a generic questions, not related to the job.
Well, give me an example. What about strengths and weaknesses?
Yes.
That's always a good one. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? The one to start with is your weaknesses. To start with, don't say it's a weakness. Say it's something that I'm not strong on, or it's an area. Don't say it's a weakness. Say it's something that I actively improve. I'm not, I need to work on my presentation skills, or I need to work on my written communication skills in the English language, or I need to work on my teamwork skills, and then give the interviewer ways that you work on them. Does that make sense?
Yep, thanks.
Come on, I think people are shy. And everybody's got...
Hi, Ray, can you hear me? I actually have a question.
Far away. Can you turn on your camera so I can see you?
Hi, Rhys. I have a question here.
Hi, Ellie.
And see if the selection criteria question is like 8 or 9 questions. And when we submit the answers, how many pages will you suggest, or how many words you will suggest good for each of the question for answers?
Yeah, good question. Really, really good question. Try and do it in 2 pages. Ellie, turn on your camera. Yeah. I can't answer you if I can't see your eyes, my dear. Brilliant, brilliant question. Try and do it in a couple of pages. I saw something that frightened me the other day in information technology, that some survey, it looked from a pretty reliable source, was saying that employers or HR professionals in IT on average spend 90 seconds looking at your application. 90 seconds. So if they're looking at it for a minute and a half, you really need to punch them in the face really, really quickly with those key selection criteria. Couple of pages. Now, what you do, if you've got 8 key selection criteria, group them together. Go back to the slide that I've given you. They're normally the technical key selection criteria together, then the key selection criteria which are generic and focusing on communication skills, organisational behaviour, and then the third lot are the technical ones, like, do you have a driver's licence? Do you have the right visa? Does that make sense? Now, also, when you write your key selection criteria, don't write an essay. Do it in dot points. Okay? What's your degree?
Master degree, Master of Arts.
Master of?
Arts for arts.
Okay. What's your major?
It's translation and interpreting.
Okay, so doing interpreting and translation. Okay. Tell me about your experiences in interpreting. Okay. So I have diverse and varied experiences in interpreting, including colon, and then you put 5 dot points. I've interpreted in healthcare settings, in legal settings, in complex settings, in court. Okay? So immediately the interviewer can see that you've got experience, you're providing evidence against the key selection criteria, but it's really punching me in the face because it's down there as dot points. Does that help, Ellie?
Yes, very much. Thank you for your answer.
Brilliant, brilliant. That's a great question. Other questions?
Hi, Rhys, I have another one. So if I fully prepared before the interview and I list some dot which I think is my advantage and will give values to this job and the company, but in the interview they didn't mention any of them, ask questions that give me this chance to show all my values and advantage, and what can I say? Can I give them a brief before they finish this interview?
Absolutely, absolutely. Good interviewers will normally, at the end of the questions, will say, do you have any questions that you'd like to ask? Or is there anything you would like to add? If there's burning things that you want to say that you haven't said, and the interviewers don't say that at the interview, you volunteer it. You say, at the end of the formal questioning, look, I've got a few things I'd like to add. And the interviewer will say, oh, great, okay, add them. And then you can say, look, we've talked a little, or we didn't have the opportunity to talk about organisational communication skills. I'd like to say a little bit about mine. I know that organisational communication skills are very, very relevant in this particular role, and mine are very good. Here's some evidence about my really good skills. Does that help?
Yep, thanks.
Okay, so yeah, never leave an interview going, oh my God, I've missed out on saying something very important. Make sure that you, and this is showing personal leadership. This is showing some assertive behaviour and some personal leadership in the interview to very, very politely ask for the opportunity to provide that additional information.
Thanks.
Okay, who else?
Hi,
Jun.
Rhys.
Hi, Jun. How are you going?
Good. Thank you. Thank you so much for your all the information. I found it's very helpful and useful. And my question is, it's related to my work experience perspective. And because I used to have about 16 years in a corporate customer service experience, but however, after that, I've been a housewife for about 5 years. So in between, there's the big gap. Right. So now I'm the student of GBCA. I'm studying. And then, okay, if back to the interview question, if the criteria is related to my previous experience, but the timing is already have the big gap between that. But I just thinking whether I should talking more about my study experience, and now I'm studying translating course in GBCA.
Yep.
So I will working hard and study hard and do put effort to work together with the other peers and peer learning and experience, and to be active in activity and all such of this stuff. But if compared to my previous customer experience and now the study experience, and to meet the job criteria, so what do you recommend? Should I talk more about the latest study experience rather than the previous? But before you mentioned about the problem solving skill, problem solving, and because the company or the organization will be more interested about the people now, their EQ or their personal skill and those stuff. So did you have some recommendation or some suggestion? Thank you.
Well, I think look, that's a great question, Jun. I think the simple answer is you talk about what is relevant to a particular key selection criteria.
Particular keywords. Okay.
So your 16 years of customer relations, customer service experience, that will be related to most key selection criteria that you'll be asked, because it's about communication, customer service, seeing if people are satisfied, problem solving, dealing with aggression, calming people down, recording what you've done and reporting it up the line, understanding how the organization works, not raising expectations that you can't fulfill. Does this all make sense? So all of this, these are the things you say, and these things don't go out of date, my dear. It doesn't matter if you've done this 10 years ago, this is all very, very relevant. And remember, Jun, also that employers are looking for someone who's capable and substantive. They're not looking at someone who's got, if you're missing a particular skill, you can be trained for that, but they're looking for someone who's got, is a substantive person. So you'll talk a lot about your customer service experience. The other thing you'll talk about is being, raising your children. My father, look, I'm a parent as well. And the sorts of things that you learn being a parent, the only difference being a parent, you don't get paid for it. You do it out of love. and also certainly talk about your study, certainly talk about where you've been working on, collaborative projects, collaborative assessment, etc., and so forth. But practice your but before you go into the interview, and pick up the things from your customer service experience. Summarize it and condense it into 4 or 5 key things, and then you can quickly pull it out of your kit bag in answer to the question. Does that help you?
Oh, I think it's brilliant. Thank you so much.
So have a practice during the week. Have a practice during the week, and then on Friday, when you do, if you want to do the practice interview, just book in now with sitting and give it a practice run, and then you can see yourself on the video.
Oh, okay. Yep, I'll have a go. And one more question, Joe. Sorry about that.
Far away.
Yeah, thank you. You're talking about the last point. Talking about before, when you're doing your job, it's more than likely it's told to do. But now and currently, it's more creative way and solve problem. But however, the update technology, the technology developed so dramatically faster. So do you think because the technology and will impact our creative weights or solve problem skill, or because the technology things?
Well, absolutely. Jun, I worked on a project 25 years ago, of all things, in the chemical engineering department, in the chemistry department at RMIT University, developing a machine translation device. Okay, so the machine translation device is going to put translators out of business. All you need to do is to put in Chinese on this button and it'll spit it out in Spanish or English or whatnot.
No.
Is that correct? No.
So no.
The machines aren't smart enough. So what we can do today is if you've got to translate 500 pages of a manual, what you can do is you don't have to translate all 500 pages. You can feed that into the machine, and the machine will give you a first cut translation, and then you can spend your time being more creative and fiddling with the first round of turning it into native Chinese or English or whatnot. Does that help?
Yeah, and now, I know what you mean now. So technology doesn't mean you don't have to be creative. Maybe even more you contribute.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Correct. So general practitioners, there's something ridiculous like every hour, 50 scientific papers on health are published in the world. Well, how can a general practitioner keep on top of that? The answer is they can't. So very smart computers that can help you narrow down the diagnosis, and then the general practitioner uses his real brains and real creativity to refine that and come up with the right diagnosis. That is using technology, but using technology to do the more routine stuff, and the human being, the professional in medicine or translation or marketing or business development or accounting are doing more higher order stuff.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. Okay, this is all my question, and thank you so much.
Pleasure. My pleasure.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
Okay. Have we got some other questions? Mi Young, one. I've seen everybody else have got their camera off. You're one of the few on. Nice to see you. And May, do you have a question?
Not at this moment.
Okay.
Thanks, Rhys.
No problem. All right. Well, I think we're about done. And look, Sitting, how do you want to handle next Friday? Who wants to do the interview?
A session for interview practice are scheduled on this Friday first. We will provide mock interviews for everyone who interested. So please email careercenter@gbca.edu.au. I can put on the chat board and leave your name and your course and your university. So we will respond in due course. So it would be a good practice opportunity for everyone to mock a real interview environment.
Yeah. When I was young, all I could do was do it in front of a mirror or do it in front of a friend, have a practice. And today we've got, it's so easy to record yourself and then play it back. And when you see yourself answering questions, you know, for the first 30 seconds, you just want to burst into tears and say, oh my God, do I really look like that? But after a while, you start being a little bit more objective and saying, that's not bad. This is the area that I need to improve in. I'm mumbling too much, or I'm going too quick. I'm going a little, I didn't realize I spoke so quick, or I didn't realize I spoke so slow. So that's the areas that you can go in and improve yourself. So you'll have the opportunity to do that on Friday if you want to.
Yes. And in the following weeks, we will have a series of workshops on social medias. So further information will be provided on our social medias to announce the speakers, some the presentation content. So please make attention on our social media. Thank you.
Yes.
So thanks, Rhys. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. So good luck with your studies, and we'll see some of you on Friday.
Yes.
Take care.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks a lot.
everyone. Bye.
Yep. Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Take care.